You might know the story of Timbuctoo. It was a black settlement near Lake Placid, founded by white abolitionist Garrett Smith in the mid-1800s. Smith gave parcels of his land to black families, hoping they could build farms, own properties, and gain the right to vote. But for decades, researchers didn't pay much attention to black history in the Adirondacks. So these families' farms weren't documented. No historical markers, no preserved sites. Timbuctoo got lost in the deep Adirondack woods. Today, archaeologists are using drones to find it. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Pearsall Wealth Management at UBS Wealth Management USA, subsidiary UBS AG, member FINRA SIPC, 1 Broad Street, Glens Falls.
Hey, I'm David Summerstein. It's Thursday, May 14th. First up, a new bill in Albany would give school districts in the North Country and across the state more time to transition to electric buses. The legislation would push the requirement back by 5 years. Currently, schools are required to start the transition next year and have exclusively electric buses by 2035. Central New York State Senator Chris Ryan is sponsoring the bill. He told WWNY-TV that he's heard from the legislature there's a good chance it'll be passed alongside the state budget. New York's automatic voter registration system would be enhanced by a bill the state Senate passed this week. The measure would automatically register people to vote when they apply for a driver's license or enroll in Medicaid. Automatic voter registration was first approved in 2020, but the rollout's been slow. Deputy Majority Leader Michael Generis, a Queens Democrat, says the bill would better reach hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers who are eligible to vote but are not registered.
I hope the Assembly joins us in passing it for the first time so we can get it done and do something to make sure that more people participate in our process and not less.
Republicans say the bill will lead to non-citizens being registered to vote and be a burden to agencies. But the bill's sponsors say it includes safeguards to prevent that from happening. New York's junior senator is calling on President Donald Trump to end the war with Iran and focus on consumers at home. During a press conference yesterday, U.S. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand said the price of fuel is astonishing.
$61 for less than half a tank, purchased by a retiree in rural central New York. $67 for less than a tank of gas for her car, paid for by a nurse in the capital region. Over $500 for a fuel oil delivery to fill just a third of a heating tank for a senior in the North Country.
According to AAA, the average gas price in New York is almost 50% higher than it was a year ago. The U.S.-Israel war with Iran is driving up prices largely because of restricted traffic through the Strait of Hormuz, a vital artery for global trade. The president has announced plans to pause the federal tax on gas, which is about 18.4 cents per gallon, to help provide relief. That move requires congressional approval. Gillibrand signaled support for that suspension. Nearly 2 centuries after the Timbuctoo settlement of black families outside Lake Placid, the farms and sites are lost deep in the forest. But now a team of researchers is using remote sensing technology to search for its traces. David Escobar reports.
When you think of archaeology, you might picture scientists digging in the dirt for artifacts. These days, though, archaeology can sound a little more like this. Eileen Ernenwine watches a drone lift off from a bright orange landing pad.
The wind speed is 2.7 miles per hour, so that's excellent. Looks really nice. It's sunny.
Ernenwine is a geosciences professor at East Tennessee State University. The drone she's flying is surveying about 200 acres of forest outside Lake Placid. Her goal is to create a detailed 3D map of the ground beneath the trees, using technology called LiDAR, short for light detection and ranging. The drone circles back and forth about 325 feet above the forest floor. It's equipped with a special sensor, firing off about 160,000 light pulses every second. Ernenwein says the drone uses those light pulses to map the shape of the land below, even with the trees in the way.
Imagine you're walking in the forest on a sunny day, and it's trees overhead, and so you're in the shade, but there's little spots of sunlight getting filtered through. Like there's light under there. You're not under complete darkness. The sunlight getting in, that's the same way the LiDAR's getting in there. It's getting in between branches and leaves.
Researchers are using those data points to build a 3D map of land that was once part of Timbuctoo. Historic maps suggest several black families once lived and farmed on this hillside. But over time, the forest reclaimed the land, erasing most visible traces of homes, roads, and farm fields.
It's a real needle in the haystack, because if you just look in those woods, you see how rough the ground is. Like the ground is not flat.
LiDAR surveys are giving researchers a new way to search that landscape.
So it's an incredible amount of land that they can cover in a short amount of time.
That's Hadley Krusek-Aaron. She's an anthropology and archaeology professor at SUNY Potsdam who's been researching Timbuctoo for more than 15 years.
That would be so much more difficult to walk the land or to do the more traditional techniques of digging small holes across that big area.
The LiDAR survey mapped this 200-acre parcel in about 90 minutes. Krusek-Aaron's team would have taken weeks to survey that same parcel with metal detectors and digging. She says the LiDAR data is already pointing researchers toward a handful of unusual contours in the landscape that could be signs of settlement activity.
One of the things that we could potentially see are features that would be evidence of field clearing. So when they were dealing with the rocky Adirondack soils, they're going to be taking out as much stone as possible and piling it up. And so those are the kinds of things that might show up on those LiDAR results and help us hone in on an area.
Researchers are particularly interested in where one family may have lived, Lyman and Anna Epps.
They came from Troy with their 2 young children and lived out here from about 1849 to 1863. And so they developed a very, viable farm. And so we know that they are in this vicinity, and it's just about where exactly are they.
On the day I visited, there's a whole other facet to this research project. A handful of living descendants of Timbuctoo settlers are here with the survey team, walking through the woods and learning more about their ancestors' lives 200 years ago. Tanya Jones is the great-great-great-granddaughter of Timbuctoo land grantees Phoebe and Edward Weeks. She traveled from Massachusetts to visit the survey site.
I think being here really kind of shows the challenge that they faced, and I've been thinking about how difficult it is to clear the vast amount of land. Just imagining people coming up here with an ox in a cart and maybe some axes to try to tame this space and make it a productive place to farm.
Jones's family has been involved in Timbuctoo research for years. Her mother's work tracing the family's connection to the settlement helped lay the foundation for much of what historians know today. She says it's one thing to read about that history, but standing on the land where her ancestors might have lived puts it all into perspective.
It just deepens my respect for all of the pioneers in the Adirondacks, and particularly the ones that came from urban New York with few means, most likely, to make a life.
So far, researchers say the LiDAR maps have identified around 5 small plots that may contain remnants of farm fields, stone piles, or building foundations. The next step is to send archaeologists to those sites to dig for artifacts that could give us a clearer picture of what Timbuctoo was really like. David Escobar, North Country Public Radio, Lake Placid.
David Escobar is a Report for America Corps member. He reports on diversity issues in the Adirondacks through a partnership between North Country Public Radio and Adirondack Explorer. We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Oscar Sarmiento of Potsdam and Danny Thomas of Canton. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.